Setting up the sound to hear, it seems a little low and muffled. Okay. So we're starting Module 5. This is about examining relationships. This QQ thing means we're looking at the relationship between two quantitative variables. So like the height and the weight of people. So here's an example. I'm looking on page 156 in the workbook. And one example is you could look at measuring both the height and the forearm length for each person in a random sample taken from a big population. And you could try to address questions like, do people with longer forearms tend to be taller than people with shorter forearms? The forearm's the part, after your elbow. Okay. And is there a formula where you could predict the typical height for a person with a given forearm length? Okay. Or you could ask how much variation among the heights of people could you predict based on just the forearm? Because there's obviously other factors. You get some degree of prediction from knowing just that one thing. How long is the arm? But that doesn't make a complete prediction, and so you could try to measure what percentage of the variation can you predict just based on that one variable, and how much is left over for other variables. Okay, so to answer those questions, we need to learn to do some things. And so we need to understand what it means for two variables to be strongly associated or weakly associated, how to measure the strength of association. We need to distinguish between different forms of association. When you plot one variable versus the other on a scatter plot, on an XY kind of graph, are they lining up, trying to make a line, or an exponential curve, or some other kind of curve, or maybe not any recognizable curve at all? So we need to understand both the strength of the association and the form, or the shape of it. And then a little vocabulary to distinguish between positive and negative association. And so there are some statistical tools to help with all these questions. And one is the scatter plot. So in this story, 22 people were measured to determine their forearm length in centimeters and their height in centimeters. Units don't have to be the same. This time they are. And we made a plot to try to illustrate the relationship. This thing's called a scatter plot. We have not seen these before in this semester. People get them confused with the dot plots, but they're really two different things. With the dot plot, there's only one variable. Here, it's two different variables. Okay. Now, this thing down below here, you see. Let me make this bigger. The one up top is a scatter plot, and the one down below is a dot plot like we already made earlier in the semester. And what you notice here is if you know a person's forearm length, you can't really predict how tall they're going to be. There's a lot of variation. We have people here whose forearm was 23 centimeters long, and you see there's 4 different people with quite a variety of different heights. So you can't predict very well, but there's a trend. It's sort of the points, there's more points here in this quadrant, below the mean of the forearm length and below the mean of the heights. Okay, to the left of the mean of the forearm lengths and below the mean of the forearm heights, there's a lot of people. And also up here in this quadrant where the forearm length and the height of the person are both above average, there's a lot of people there. Fewer people on the diagonal. So the two things are tending to sort of go together a little bit. So that's an example of a weak positive association. And there's some exercises here. These were written by Myra Snell over at Los Medanos College, and we use them at City College in our pre-statistics class to kind of get the concept across and to help you interpret what you see in the graphs. So the person with index number 18 in the data listing, what does that even mean? Index number 18 in the data listing. So here's the data listing. This is the index number over here, person number 1, person number 2, so forth. So the person with index number 18 is person number 18 right there. And you see that guy has a coordinates 25, 160. That means the forearm was 25 centimeters long and the height of the person was 160 centimeters. So coming back down to the story here, you see that person has coordinates 25, 160. What do we know about the person? And label the person in each one of the 3 figures. And when I did this with the pre-statistics class a couple of years ago, and it was in the spring of 2018 in the classroom, well, they were working in groups. And they did it themselves, and I walked around and gave hints. And that's just a lot more effective than just saying the answer. But, well, this person number 18, you see it's the yellow one right here because the person's represented by the yellow dot because of the coordinates 25 centimeters and 160 centimeters. So in the first graph, in the scatter plot, it's easy to find the person. Now, where is that person in this number line plot or dot plot for the forearm length? Can we tell? But it's not one of these 3 people who have a forearm length of 24. But where's the 25? Is it one of these 2 dots? I need to make that bigger again. See the forearm length of 25, is it one of these two dots, or is it this guy right here? I'm just guessing. It looks to me like 25 would be halfway between 24 and 26. It looks like it's the guy by himself here. Okay. But I can also look back at the data list and see, you know, who are the people in the list whose forearms are just a little bit shorter than 25. And I find them over here. There's person number 11, whose forearm was 24.5, and person number 17, whose forearm was 24.5. So those two people must be the two dots just to the left of our guy. Okay. So where's our guy? He's that one. Okay. So continuing on with the questions. Oh, where is he in the other graph? The same person is going to be one of these people at 160. They had a height of 160, and there's 4 of them. So there's no way to tell which one of those he is. He's just one of those 4. How are we doing so far? You want to chime in or put something in the chat? Okay. I think it's looking okay. So 3 dots have been highlighted in the forearm dot plot. What do they have in common? And find them in the other 2 graphs. So here they are, these 3 people right here. And why don't you guys like put in the private chat or the public chat, either way. What do you think? What do they have in common? They all have what? Are you still there? Type something. Anybody? What do these 3 people all have in common? We only know 2 things about them, right? We know their forearm length, and we know their height. So, you know, all what they have in common here is they got the same forearm length. Okay. So now let's label them B, C, and D. Need to get a real small font on that. Okay, so that's as small as I can make the font. There they are, points B, C, and D. And now we need to find them in the other two charts. Okay, so there are these guys with the 22-inch forearm. Okay. So it's those guys. Now I don't know which one's which. Okay. So at this point I can just mark them B, C, D. But then I have to find where they are in the other pictures. Okay. So there they are up there. Now, this guy on the bottom, that's the shortest person with a forearm length of 22 inches, or 22 centimeters. So I find my people with a forearm length of 22 centimeters, and then the shortest one is going to be person D. So person D could be this guy with 167, or this guy with 163. Or this guy down here is the shortest with 157. So person number 19 is D. Okay. So to come back over here, I find out person D was the shortest, and person B is the tallest. So that was the 167. So that was person number 13. The person B has index 13. So it goes. You can work out the others. Find another group of people who have the same forearm length. Okay, well, like these three over here. There's a group of people with the same forearm length. And so that's well, if I could. Oh, I see. Hang on. So I'll label this question 3, and And I'll put that over here. And then you see how it goes. Questions? All right, then you find groups of people who have the same height as each other, and find the two people who differ the most in their forearm measurement. And then that's it. You know, so the pre-stats people in the spring of 2018, you know, they did have some challenge with this, and you know, I found that after about 20 minutes walking around answering people's questions, you know, then they got it. So you can let me know now if you're going to have concerns about this. You put something in the private chat or say it, you know, and I'll try to address it now, and otherwise I'll move on. Okay. Okay, so then the next little part is on the direction of association. Find somebody who's shorter than average forearm and also shorter than average in height. You'd have to go through the list. It would be hard without the scatter plot, but you look at the scatter plot, and if you're below average in forearm, you're to the left, and if you're below average in height, you're toward the bottom. So it's anybody in this quadrant over here. There'll be a lot of such people to choose from. And then find somebody who's longer than average forearm and taller than average. So you go through the 4 combinations. You know, short, short, long, long, short, long, long, short. 4 quadrants. And you know, it'll ask you, you know, are there more of them along the diagonal with positive slope, or are there more of them along the diagonal with negative slope? So it's, if you think, number these quadrants 1, 2, 3, 4, it's quadrants 1 and 3 that are overpopulated compared to the other 2. And so when that's the case, that's what you call positive association. It's like if you were going to draw a line through the points, it would slope upward slightly. Okay. So that's the difference between positive and negative association. If it's more in quadrants 1 and 3, that's positive, and if it's more in quadrants 2 and 4, that's negative. And I ask you to draw a little sketch here. It's kind of fun to do. Works better in the classroom. So if the association was negative between forearm length and height, it's like your short person would have long forearms and your tall person would have short forearms. Okay. So that's it, and then there's a homework where you apply those ideas and you have to work some things out. And I want to leave that homework, you know, for you to do. But hopefully when you're, you know, as you read through the discussion part prior to the homework, if you come to some questions that I've not, you know, answered for you, or you want clarification of, send me an email or ask on Wednesday. And so that's all for the sort of overview. I'm going to stop the recording.